Hey there, Ddraig back with a new sub-faction of the dwarves to look at, created by Elon. The Greybeard's Prospectors, and when I say new, I mean new. This faction is not part of your. Elon has expanded on a faction and created all the following units, using his own creativity and design. A very impressive achievement. So if you are a type of dwarf, and looks at your funders, and wishes he has more of these types of guns, well fear not, we are here to help. So let's check out his creation, and always, let's do a unit breakdown first, with a look at the campaign to follow. All the following stats are based on ultra settings. So let's start with the leader of this clan, Greybeard, an outcast of the dwarves who has seeked adventure down in the Southlands. Away from the tradition of the dwarves, he's forging his own style, and brings a much smaller army with him but backed up by a lot of dwarf firearms. Oldir is your typical dwarf, tough and sturdy and heavily armoured, equipped with a ranged weapon which has high AP of 300 with a huge range of 300. I have noticed you have to have a good line of sight for the weapon, so make sure you set up your army to give him a clear shot. Being a dwarf, he can hold his own in a fight and still has a good AP value of 275. All said, he is a great Yord to lead your main force with no serious weaknesses. Buff wise, he has the extra powder buffing damage of any nearby ranged dwarves, so clearly best used near the rear, near missile units, especially cannon. Next is a huge buff to anybody nearby, plus 50% to armor piercing missile damage is huge and a nice radius of 40 meters. Means a lot of damage can be brought to bear on the enemy. The headshot ability is just a huge bonus for sniping out units, giving huge damage buffs, but yes range and longer reload, but as you can see the payoff is pretty impressive. Always have a couple of units around order, so you can intercept any incoming attacks, as keeping him free and the buffs on is key to the Greybeard's success. Items wise, he has two. A weapon for the more melee based Oldir and gives him a lot of AP, and the Sunder armor ability, making it an interesting weapon to be used. Lastly, we have experimental ammunition, a magic missile causing large damage but on a long cooldown, so be aware of this. During the campaign, you can actually take the Slayer Oath, turning Oldir into a Slayer. A truly unique thing for our campaign, completely changing his abilities. Now he is a monster in combat, but of course he has no ranged attack. As well as the weapon above, he can have another ability. The Oath Fulfilled is a huge map ride buff, adding some great melee buffs, leadership and some great vigour, as well as immune to psychology. A very powerful ability. He also has an extra bit of equipment, a Slayer belt, increasing his melee defence, but notice it is disabled when it's below 50% health. For other options for Yords, you can also take a Thane or a new type of Yord, the Obsidian Commander. While not good as Oldir, he is still an interesting choice as a Yord, with huge missile damage but at a short range, again making placement the key. Ranged weapon is 8 projectiles fired like a shotgun and causes a lot of damage, so if you can get this Yord on a flank, never easy for a slow moving dwarf, a lot of damage can be put out. With an extra bonus to infantry of 5 on the missile weapon, making it very potent but lacks a bit of ammo for balance. When it comes to melee, he is noticeably weaker than Oldir with a low melee attack, but much tougher with high armour and defence. Weapon strength is there, and a really high bonus for his infantry of 40. Abilities, he has the extra powder and the leadership buffs as well as a very handy master ballistics calibration, giving him an extra boost. As you can see, on the whole, you want your Yords not in the front rank but in the second or even the third, where they can hold their own in a fight. They are much better as a support Yord. Lastly, there are two items. Iron Warder's Hammer, which gives them perfect vigour, and the Star Metal Plate, which adds a nice debuff on the Yord. With the hero units being the same, 3 as normal, Thane, Master Engineer and Runesmith, let's go straight into the new units, starting with the Sentries. Starting off, let's talk about the main point of his army, the Akka models. The most you've seen any of these units is 50. So Greybeard Prospectors are a very elite bunch of dwarfs, meaning getting overrun is possible and likely, but the focus is to thin the enemy before they get close, as your actual stats of the units are pretty high. So the cheapest of these are the sentries at 525 points. They're pretty decent in front line, but do lack armour, so be aware of that. They do have a few throwing axes with nice damage and a pinned swirling effect. This will slow down the charger, allowing more damage to be done. Both ranged and melee damage is high on AP, allowing good damage in both phases. They can also vanguard and stalk, so they can try some ambushing, which can be seen on quite a few units in this army. But they are slow, so you need careful placement and build the army around this to make it work. Lastly, they have the ability Opportunist Murder, boosting their stats if winning combat. If you weaken the unit they face enough, this will provide that extra boost to allow dwarves to win the combat quickly. Your classic dwarf defense unit now, the Shield Wall, are 50 models at 650 points. Stout dowie, yocking shields and repelling all comers. With that silver shield and excellent melee defense, make them a great unit to fall back to hold the enemy in place. While not huge damage dealers, they can certainly grind it out with most shield tier infantry, and definitely can chew through the chaff. But they're very slow, so be aware of your placement in deployment. As old dwarfs, flexible movement is not really their thing. They bring the shield wall ability, allowing them to boost their defense considerably and give them expert defense. Timed right negates any charge, and at 30 seconds allows the enemy to get stopped in their tracks on a stout unit. The Legion Vanguard is a really interesting unit at 700 points, giving you a bit of automatic flexibility. More about that in a minute. First, the unit, reasonable defense and attack, not excelling at either but provide a solid base. Nice high damage but yacking that AP with only 8. Also with that low armour, meaning they're not great against the elite AP enemy units. What they do provide is a lot of flexibility. The two buffs provided are both offensive and defensive. If winning, they boost damage from their attacks, but also, if they're using, they boost their defense instead, making them either really sturdy or much more effective in combat. I use for a unit in the second rank either to tighten up the defense if it's starting to falter, or send them to finish off a unit. They have a small charge bonus, meaning their offensive unit can really get some good kills on the enemy. Need a dedicated offensive unit, the Ironbreakers at 825 provide some extra damage and also provide some AoE with their large axes. Great against the chaff to help clear them out quickly, and with AP of 30 and a huge 15 anti-infantry bonus. This faction has obvious issues with being overrun, and this unit can provide a nice melee way of clearing some of the numerous factions, such as Skaven or Vampires. Use your melee defense units to hold the line, and then use this unit to come in and clear them out. Hopefully making nice small holes in the front line so you can push on through. Being in the Southlands and having the Tomb Kings around them, there is obviously an anti-yard threat. So these Shapney Swayers are hammer infantry, and for Swayers have actually armour, and the damage to bring down the yard foes as well, with 40 AP and a bonus of charge of 40. This unit is the perfect backline foil, waiting to pounce on any large target that comes close to it. With armor sundering weapon, but remember that your defense, so be careful and watch out and watch how this unit performs, being ready to bring them out of the combat if needed. Even with some armor, they can disappear quite quickly, as that melee defense does not help. They are unbreakable though, so that adds to that typical never say die attitude. But they do suffer if they're fighting more than one unit, so always be aware of where this is, as they can easily turn the tide on fighting those big constructs. The best defenders the Greybeards have are the Golden Guard, with a whopping 75 defense. This expensive unit at 1250 makes it the perfect centerpiece for any front line. Very slow, but has decent damage if you're yacking that AP. The enemy will hit this rock and will not move for a while, so you can just use them there to soak the pressure up. Then with this rock in the front line, move your units around to capitalise on their defence and hit them into the flank. If this unit is properly supported, they can be a nightmare to shift, and if you add a runesmith with some of those defensive runes, making this truly one of the toughest units to get rid of by any faction. The only problem, as with all these units, is only 50 models, so the flanks need to be protected, as if they get surrounded, they will negate some of that defence. The most damaging melee infantry is disposable, with a truly daft 160 armour and a huge damage, and this without their frenzy ability. This unit is going to yay down the hurt at 1500 points, but they're only 30 models, so they can easily get surrounded and picked on by the elite units. But if they have no AP, they're not going to get very far with this unit. Send them straight in as soon as you can on the elite units. Hopefully they've been weakened by your missiles, and they can almost walk straight through them with their damage. Boost their melee with some buffs, and this unit will march straight through any army, causing huge damage. Now we move on to the more interesting part of this faction, the ton of choices when it comes to missiles or gunpowder weapons. Starting off with the 500 point scouts, the cheapest option, and just provide fire support at good range at 160. Good steady damage, and can also vanguard and stalk, making very valuable flankers if the need arises. The specialist missile unit at 600 points are tough and provide an interesting niche weapon. With ammo is limited to 10 shots, they can really hurt any shield unit, so pick your targets well. Don't waste these shots on units which don't have shields or high armour. They can provide a great way to mix up some damage, so if you see a particular elite unit of high armour and shielded, say the Chosen of the Chaos units, weaken them with this unit and add more firepower from another unit, and this is a very effective vehicle mix. As an added bonus, they are reasonable in combat and can provide a nice second rank holding unit with a high melee defense for a ranged unit. And of course they have that very high armour with a shield. The charge pickers are limited to use specialist in breaking fast charging frontline units, say the Beastmen as an example. Using the bombs with their disoriented ability, they can use these even on a cav force and completely negate the charge attack. Naturally at 65 range they need perfect timing, but it is possible. I will not say this is a must pick, but they can provide a useful against certain factions, as their explosions can be very damaging against chaff. Again, they are pretty good in defense, so when the ammo gone, they can still provide a useful roadblock against weaker units. With a name like Blunderbuss, you cannot help but smile at the damage this unit can have. Personally, always have automatic fire turned off, as you don't want to waste this ammo. Get them in position, ready to move on a flank, and then walk them in, turn around, and yet the fire goes straight into the rear of the enemy. At 750 points, they can easily outdo that point value, if you time it right, and they are truly close quarter beasts. But if you do not control the flanks, this can be negated quite easily. So do not rush them in, make sure the flank is controlled before you push on this unit, as they are ripe for being picked off by cavalry. Heavy Thunderers are exactly what you think they are, just more damaging Thunderer units. Excellent AP with a ton of ammo, so they can be safe in the centre of your lines and then try to avoid combat as much as possible, so they can use all that ammo against the enemy. At 800 points they provide a lot of damage, and I tend to run with 2 of these in most armies, as they can usually rack up the kills. The small units at 800 points are a great choice against Tomb Kings, as their fire rockets bring huge damage, and of course they have an anti-arch buff of 75. Naturally, with such a small unit size, keeping them alive is challenging, so you need bodyguards, but if you can keep them safe, they will destroy constructs with ease. Now we come to a unit of heavy Thunderers, but this time with grenade launchers. They are 875 points, bring an interesting choice against chaff of the greenskins or the Skaven. Launching these grenades into the soft ranks of low armour units can be truly devastating, and even having one of these units can really thin the ranks, and their melee stats are good enough to hold their own against any chaff units. Obviously a great pick against any horde faction, but make sure they are well protected. This very niche unit of snipers, 965 points. They have only one real good use, and that's hero killing, or against very solitary units. But they are very good at this, to be fair. Huge damage and highly accurate, they can beat most heroes and most large units, but that's all they really do. They are no good against any horde factions or any units that have more than one model, and I don't use them for that reason. But if you are facing a bit of a hero spam, this unit can be particularly handy. Also, as a nice little niche, against the undead factions, where the Yord is particularly annoying when it gets killed, this unit can definitely find a home. If you need some ranged firepower against that endless Yord, the rocket launchers have you covered at 1050. Almost like an artillery unit, and they provide great damage at range. And that is key to this faction, weakening the enemy before they make contact with your infantry. So having the right balance of units is a big help. Staging the range from artillery to this unit, then have some closer units, and finally the close quarter units. Get the balance right and the timing, and you can severely weaken the enemy before their swords meet your shield. Now this faction has standard gyrocopters and gyro bombers, also some unique artillery options. With a famous organ as a choice, the first new unit is a precision cannon, which is pretty much what you expect at 700 points. A highly accurate cannon with greater than your standard range by 20. It acts as damage but can deliver it with pinpoint accuracy, which is definitely worth it. At 850 points, it's all about throwing stuff at the enemy and seeing what might hit. If you're against a large army, this mortar can do some good damage, and with some experienced ranks, it's even accurate. With a larger range than a standard mortar, but obviously acts that accuracy, this can really do damage to horde infantry. Almost no point against any high armour units, so Chaos will just yaff at what damage this weapon can do, as its bonus of the armour easily protects them. The Demolisher Cannon is well named. At 1000 points it specialises in high damage shots against large units, with an anti-arch bonus of 60. Almost all the damage is AP, and it has good damage against anything it hits. Not much more I can say about this unit, but if you're going to be facing a faction which has large units, it's that simple, you bring this cannon. The last of the artillery options is the steam tank of sorts. The Ankror is equally terrifying as the Empire's steam tank. Amazing in both ranged or close quarters. Unless you're facing an anti-arch specialist, you can easily get through about 10 melee defense, but at least it's got that high armour. Keep the core moving and away from trouble, and can easily give you some much needed damage to the front line. As a mobile artillery, this is always a huge bonus. And of course, you can always charge it in. At 80 charge, means you can certainly do some good damage as it charges in, and then wheel away and start shooting again. This is a very useful unit. Lastly, let's have a look at the 6 Regiments of Renown that Elon has created. Started with Skeleton's Saboteurs, a mining unit with some interesting abilities. The stats first though, pretty much your standard unit of miners across the board with obviously increased stats. Do have armour, sundering ability on the main weapon, making them a bit more useful. At the 725 cost, they provide more damage with their range ability, and have a couple of unique changes they can make. Either having demo charges for nice damage against buildings, or midnight grenades, nerfing it out of the range accuracy, but being that the unit is only 70 range, means you have to get close. But they do have Stalk and Vanguard, which means it's quite easier than you think. They also have the extra powder ability, a brilliant skill with such a range dominant faction that this is, and a very handy net, which is always good to keep the enemy at bay. Varia's Protectors are another strong defensive unit at 850 points, with high armour, silver shield to boost their sturdiness. Damage wise not great, and they lack all that important AP, but they're meant to hold and they do that very well. With an ability to help shield and block missile fire on other units around them, becomes very handy. With so many models, I also have even one is felt. Being that it's a 40 meter radius, this might be useful to hold this unit back until you have more control of the battle. Keep them in the second rank, buffing your front line if they get focused by enemy missile units. The Swords of Gazul is a unit I don't particularly agree with, because as we know, no self-respecting dwarf would ever use a sword, and they are 1700 cost. Yet here we are with this unit, and to be fair, they are very good. Excellent melee attack and defense, and a really good damage with very high armour. and a silver shield, making them excellent in the front line. With their 3 main attacks, making it an automatic unit against any undead faction, and as a burnt ability, it also comes in very handy. Also, they have a buff which gives magical and fire damage around themselves. Only a few uses of said buff, but they last for a reasonable amount of time and can make a very big difference in a fight. An excellent range unit of alchemists, at 850 points, providing huge damage with the torrents of acid. They apply the Weeping Blade debuff, which takes 50 armor for 35 seconds, which as you can tell, is a massive debuff. As good as they are, the problem with framers is finding the right balance and getting them in the correct place so you can shoot without being countered. With only 90 range, this is especially difficult with any cav who can close the distance very quickly. With this unit, or any other framer, you have to be on point with your defence, as they're pretty poor in melee and they only have 6 models. Then again, if you get them in the right place, they cause so much damage, and if they're left their own, they can easily wipe out a few units, or even the toughest elite warriors. For 900 points, you get these specialist range units, with the interesting debuff of Disrupted, which can really screw up any casters. While their Stalk and Vanguard can get you close to the casters, they will need the protection, and the range damage is not massive, but can certainly soften up your tier units. Focus them on a caster though, and they do a great job of disrupting casting, and you can give the advantage in a fight against heavy magic heavy opposition. Even when they are in combat, they are pretty effective with good damage, and still have that debuff on their close attacks. Overall, a very interesting unit, which certainly can provide a great choice in a niche fight. The perfect unit to end on is the Greybeard Prospectors, providing a Guardian and excellent AP at range or close fighting. Again, no pushovers in melee combat, they excel at hanging around with any Order hero, which they provide their protection and added firepower to the front lines. With Rowdy to boost vigour and leadership, and also providing the immune to psychology buff, which is perfect for shoring up that front line of the brave Ddraig defence. Personally, I would use this unit with Odor. He is so powerful, and with this unit, adding the Guardian makes him much tougher and can keep him in the fight longer. And that is the last of the units. As you can see, Elon has put a lot of work into this faction, and has provided an interesting campaign as well, which I will cover in my next video. So until then, thanks for watching, and I will see you there.